Welcome to Peace Now. My name is Trudy Quaife. I'm a member of Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace. We're a local organization of friends and neighbors, and we've been advocating for peace and justice for well over a decade. I'm your host today, and I'm joined by Grace Nichols. Thank you
Hello.
for being here, Grace.
Good afternoon.
Grace is a local environmental activist, and I'm going to let her tell us a little bit more about herself. How did you become an activist, Grace?
Hi. I'm living here in Bethlehem now, and we have a lot of environmental issues here in Bethlehem. But I got my start in environmentalism quite some time ago. I was active in the anti-nuclear movement when we were concerned about nuclear power plants. And my first arrest was actually at Shoreham nuclear power plant out on Long Island. When I was much younger, when I was 18 or whatever. I got in a lot of trouble with my parents, as I recall. But I ended up getting a history degree and deciding that history was really a story of an assault on the earth. And nobody really in my history department agreed. And they kept saying I should go on in sociology, and I kept saying that I wasn't sure that I wanted to do that. And I left and I went to California, and I started working for the Berkeley Ecology Center. I was actually their bookkeeper, which is kind of funny actually if you know me at all, that I was doing the books. I'm not that great with money, but there I was. And so I was really fortunate. My boss was actually the leader of the North Coast Earth First. And so I got to know a lot of really the leading forest activists. And I got to know the founder of Rainforest Action Network. I got to meet the guys who were saving the butterflies of San Bruno Mountain. I mean, we were kind of like a hotbed of all different activists. And so I was very fortunate, and I ended up spending a lot of time up north. And for a kid from Brooklyn, okay, let's put it that way, I'm from Brooklyn, to go to Headwaters Forest and to go visit All Species Grove, and to walk out, and the air is moist and 60 degrees, and there's these phenomenally large red trees. Both the redwoods and the Doug fir grow together, and the forest floor is nearly without vegetation. You've got some rhododendron, actually. You've got ferns, and the giant Pacific salamander, if you're lucky enough to see one. And so we're walking, and it's like a temple. It's a cathedral out there, and you're walking, and suddenly the temperature shoots up to 80 degrees, and there's a clear cut. There are stumps this wide, and they actually are little seedlings that the timber company planted, and they're wilted because you can't grow an old growth forest. You have to have successions of forests. And so I went out there, and I had this, here's the sacred and here's the massacre. And I spent the next 10 years working to end those kinds of clear cuts and that kind of abuse of our primary forests. And so really it was engendered in me when I realized that we still did have wilderness in this country, that not every place looked like Brooklyn, that was in fact what was worth fighting for.
Well, what are some of the organizations you worked with during that time?
Wow.
Briefly.
Well, I got my start with Mobilization for Survival, which did both nuclear weapons and anti-nuclear plants kinds of work, and I really appreciate them. They did an amazing work, and we brought out a lot of people, over 100,000 for the SALT talks, and I got arrested at the South African embassy because we believed that they were also a nuclear nation, which in fact they were. And so we did that, and then I was in college. I was running the alternative media, and we did divestiture stuff, and I put out newspapers on all different topics because that was my job. And when I left college, I got involved in both the Berkeley Ecology Center, but also North Coast Earth First. And we were kind of an amalgamation of different groups. We merged into Save Headwaters Forest, which was a really wonderful group. And we're very proud of that fact that we asked for 60,000 acres, and we got the federal government to buy 15,000 of those acres outright. And it's the most expensive land in the United States, so because of the timber. And so we felt that was a huge victory, but not enough. And so those years were spent that way. When I came back to New York State with 2 little kids in tow, who I have pictures of them sitting on the sidewalk, drawing an X through a chainsaw, okay, when they were 4 years old, So these were my kids, And so anyway, they came back here with me, and I was teaching, and I was trying to calm down and cool it and keep my head below the radar a little bit more than I was used to doing. And I worked with Save the Pine Bush, because those are my kind of people.
Great organization.
They're my kind of people.
Yeah.
Save the Pine Bush will not quit. And they decided there are endangered species here, and there's a wonderful, beautiful, unusual habitat out there called the pine bush. And over the years, we're talking 30 to 40 years, they managed to win national monument status for the pine bush. And so I really, really learned a lot from them about what it takes to save a piece of land when it's highly priced, highly valued, and how they did it in the courts. Like Earth First, we would use every theater you could possibly use, but Save the Pine Bush were legal experts, and they used the law. And so I have nothing but respect for all they did. And so, yeah, I learned a lot from them. I still go visit them when I can.
Okay. Well, so we've got a lot to talk about in terms of current issues, so why don't we get right to that?
Yeah.
Let's talk about what you're currently working on. What are the issues you're concerned about now?
Yeah, I came to Town of Bethlehem about 3 years ago, and I came here because I wanted to live near the deer. I wanted to be near Five Rivers and Thatcher Park, and I really honor the kind of wildlife research that goes on out here, and I wanted to have the birds. So I'm very grateful to be here, and I live around the corner from the Pine Hollow Arboretum. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a local, almost a tree museum. It's a botanical garden. It's around the corner from me, and so we're very fortunate. There's a natural wealth here, and there's even a number of protected species that live here, from the northern harrier to the short-eared owl, we believe is here. The Indiana bat is here. The recovering eastern bluebird, the amazing recovery. They were rare, and now they're here. And then as you go down towards the Hudson, though I saw one in Delmar just the other day, there was a bald eagle. There's enough now that they actually fly through Delmar. And there's also the sturgeon, another federally protected species that's out there in the Hudson. So we have just a natural wealth here, and I wanted to be around that. Since I didn't grow up with it, to me it's just so precious. And so here I am, and they must like me. The projects that have just targeted Bethlehem, so that Bethlehem was the place with 4, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4 fossil fuel projects slated for the town of Bethlehem. And the first one was the NED, the National Energy Direct Pipeline, heading from the Constitution all the way up through Massachusetts and on. And we fought so hard, and we were able to defeat that project. And the investors pulled out, and Kinder Morgan gave it up. So we won against the NED, which was unusual. I mean, there was no, a year ago, people would have told you we were hallucinating if you thought you could win that one. But we did, and we did it collectively. And it was a multi-county effort in this state, and plenty of effort in other states. So that's gone. Woo, good. But we have 3 left. One is, of course, the oil trains. And those are ubiquitous in Albany County, and they circle Bethlehem. And we haven't had the kind of outcry we've seen in the city of Albany, partially because our population's different. We've got, I think, a little less population, maybe less density of population in Albany. However, the town of Bethlehem has made some negative statements about the oil trains, and there's a lot of work left to be done on that, on what we're going to do to convince our government that that's not safe. And we know it's not safe. 46 people died in Lac-Megantic in a little railroad accident, and there have been accidents all over the country.
That was
so
in Canada?
Right, that was in Canada.
A couple of years ago.
Right. And there's going to be actually a memorial again for Lac-Megantic this year, but you'll be hearing about that. Then the second one is the Pilgrim Pipelines. Has not been built yet. However, there's a well-developed plan, not a wisely developed plan, but well-developed, that goes through New Jersey. It's a double pipeline that comes all the way through to the Port of Albany, crosses under the Hudson, goes through East Greenbush, and comes back to the Port of Albany under the Hudson. It is an arrogant project of two huge pipelines that flow so swiftly that should there be a pinprick at all, the spill would be huge. And they send it, of course, in the Ramapo Valley and in the Hudson Valley, so two sensitive ecosystems. So we've got to defeat that. And we're fortunate in that all the large environmental movements, organizations are moving against it. So from Riverkeeper to Sierra Club, there's nobody who's for the Pilgrim pipelines, and thank God. But there's a lot of activism. You'll be seeing that against the Pilgrim pipelines, and we're fortunate in our town government passed an extremely strong resolution against Pilgrim. So we're really proud of them for doing that. But the last one is a little bit more tricky, and that's also Kinder Morgan. Kinder Morgan being one of the least favorite corporations in this hemisphere. They are a frack gas company. They're known for being sloppy. They're from Texas. They don't seem to care much about other people's communities, and they are here. And Tennessee Valley owns the pipes, and Kinder Morgan supplies the frack gas. So what they said was last August, they said they wanted to put in a 1.3 mile bypass, and they said they wanted a pig receiver on it. And the town of Bethlehem actually agreed and gave them an easement to avoid an eminent domain fight. I think the 1.3 miles sounds so small when you think about these other projects that you're like, man, okay. But what I think they missed was that this 1.3 miles goes under both the Philippinkill and the Vlomenkill, maybe the most beloved river from the students up at Five Rivers. So it's going to go beneath both of those, it's going to blast underneath. It's poorly written plan, meaning they define a riparian zone of only 25 feet, which is just not adequate. In fact, in Massachusetts, the other wing of that project, which is the Massachusetts loop of the Connecticut expansion, they're suing, and they've sued twice now, and they're appealing because of the poor provisions within this plan. But aside from that, it's attached to something called a pig receiver. And I'm telling you, 3 weeks ago, I didn't know what a pig receiver was, but I talked to a gentleman who was approving water permits way back when. He's now retired. And he sat down and explained it to me, that this is one of the dirtiest parts of fracking. It's when they go in there with a pig, which is kind of like a little drone, and it flies down the pipe and it looks for cracks. And then it scrapes out the pipe, taking the very, very concentrated residue of fracking fluid, anything that was in the rock that was blasted. So you got radon, you always have radon in there, it's always radioactive. So it's always radioactive. It's likely to have mercury in there, and that will methylate. According to the folks down south, it always got PCBs in it, and it makes sense that it would, because your hydrocarbons under pressure, fracking fluid has benzene, it's aromatic hydrocarbon, it goes up, joins the methane, condenses back down. If there's any halogens around, you're going to end up with halogenated hydrocarbons. So we expect there'll be PCBs in there. And like I said, the activists further downstate tell us that in their pig receiver, they have PCBs in there as one of the major constituents. So knowing that, and knowing that it's on two very important rivers, streams really, that flow together and then flow right into the Hudson, and knowing we've kind of done some of these experiments before, we were committed not to doing the fracking experiment in New York State, but we've done the PCB experiment. We know what happens if we put it in the food chain and if it hits the Hudson. And this project could do that. We do not know very many pig receivers that don't leak and spill. They always do. They're so toxic, they're so concentrated, that when they hit the ground, even if it's just a teeny little bit, it makes an acre of brownfield. And that brownfield, the water hits the brownfield, flows downstream, and it hits the sediment in the river, in the stream, at which point the invertebrates are contaminated, they're eaten by other species, the fish eat the fish, and the bird eats the fish. We expect that a food chain, the This is bioaccumulative waste. It's what we call an organic chemical, so it has carbon in it. When the body ingests that, it says, this is fine, this is like me, this is food, this is fine. And it puts it into its fatty deposit system. So it's not just like you eat it and excrete it like it was an inorganic mineral or something. You actually eat it and it goes into the body, and it continues and it concentrates into the oils. And this is a real problem, because let's say you have a bass, a fish that lives 13 years, and it's in the stream, and it eats and it eats and it eats and eats all these contaminated mosquito larvae and whatever it eats, and it ends up continuously being exposed. By the time that fish is ready to be eaten by that eagle down there, that fish is so contaminated that when the eagle bioconcentrates it, you've got a significant problem. And that has happened to us before. So I'm committed to letting people know that this thing exists, that it's not as benign as it was represented to be, that it is blasting near people's wells out by Elm and 32 and cross Meads Lane, that it is crossing the Vlamenkill and the Philippinkill, and that it is a serious concern to us, and we need to defend ourselves.
All right, let's move along. You founded a new organization titled Ecodefense. Could you talk a little bit about that organization and what your goals are?
Sure. And we're on the level of, we used to say about Earth First, we're not an organization, we're a t-shirt. But in the sense that we're a group of citizens who are very concerned that we as Bethlehem are under assault from a lot of industrial projects. So the 3 fossil fuel projects are the main ones we're concerned about right now, and that's the Pilgrim, the oil trains, and the fracked gas pipeline, Kinder Morgan, Connecticut expansion is what they call it. So it's 3 states. It's Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Bethlehem, but Bethlehem is sort of uniquely targeted because it doesn't go outside our boundaries. So it's not like we can get together with the other counties, because really we have to fight this one. And that's fracked gas. But there's other industrial assaults on Bethlehem as well. And so it seems that we're at that point where we need a uniquely Bethlehem Ecodefense organization that says we're putting our foot down, we're putting our feet down, we're putting our foot down, where that we are not going to permit our watershed to become a dumping ground, that we do have really precious wildlife here and really precious citizens here, and we are not intending to allow them to become contaminated, and that as an entity, so the Town of Bethlehem needs to make that decision. And I do believe that people here have that very deeply in them, that we are known for our wildlife, we're known for our wildlife research, we're known for our parks, for our beautiful forests, for our woodlots, for our water, for our deer. We really are an inhabited place, and I think that's why a lot of us are here. And we have a rich agricultural heritage here, so people don't want their land and water contaminated because we grow food here.
Well, I think we could say all of that is true of the whole planet. We'd like to save all of it, but particularly we'd like to save where we live.
I think it's important that when you are in a frontline community, you don't have a lot of choices but to stand up and get active. So what we're doing is we are going door to door and re-educating people, letting people know what's going on and asking for their support. And we've been having a lot of success with that, but we're just getting going. Like we said, this project was represented as maintenance on an existing line, and it turned out it's a lot more than that. And we just got the foils about 3-4 weeks ago that showed us the map of exactly where this is and what it is, and so we really don't have a choice but to fight it.
What would you say is the single most important issue you've ever worked on as an activist?
I say that species extinction, it's a difficult thing, and particularly I was a science teacher. It's a difficult thing to tell children that we're living in the 6th extinction, and we are really at that moment where we are looking for the causes of extinctions to stop them, or we're accelerating that. And so a lot of my work has been to draw attention to our situation with respect to our relationships to other species, and to try to bring in some of the things that species need, or preserve what they need. And it always, they say this environmentalism, they say, you know, when you win for 5 years.
Right.
When you lose forever. And so, you know, when you have a species such as, on the West Coast, we might say, we had some giant Pacific salamanders, some spotted owls left, some marbled murrelets left, and what we needed to do was preserve the circumstances that would allow them to survive. Here, it's not, we didn't just have to preserve the circumstances that allowed Carter blues to be here. We had to repopulate with Carter blues because we had lost so many. There were so few left. And so we had to repopulate. And when it comes to these projects, it's like holding ground. We've managed to get these many northern harriers back in this area. The last thing we want to do is put PCBs in their habitat.
Okay. We're winding down here. We've got 7 or 8 minutes left. I'm wondering if you, I know that you're a writer and a singer,
Okay.
and I'm wondering if you would like to sing a song for us. I think you've written at least one song. Would you?
You know, I'm fortunate in that many of the movements that I've worked within use music as a medium. And so I've known a lot of really good musicians. I write my own songs as well. And so I'm thinking about what would fit best on this little time that we have together. And so what I'm going to do is actually sing a song that was written by Dana Lyons. And he's an interesting guy. He's from Niskayuna, but he's lived in Washington State for decades. And he wrote the song to honor some North Coast communities. These were communities where the elders had stood up in defense of the salmon. And he wrote this song to honor them. And so I'm only singing part of the song because I'm not going to, I'm going to sing the whole thing. But we adjusted it slightly for this watershed. If I have any time left, I'll sing another little one. But this one, how it goes. Sturgeon come home again and again from the beginning of time, beginning from when we've been living here. And sturgeon, they've been living here forever. Oh, we've been living here. The sturgeon, they've been living here forever. We are one small town. We are one proud people. We are one with sturgeon. And we're one with eagle. And sturgeon come home again and again, and again and again, and again and again. They've been living here. Those sturgeon, they've been living here forever. Oh, they've been living here. Our sturgeon have been living here forever. We are one small town. We are one proud people. We are one with sturgeon, and we're one with eagle. And sturgeon come home again and again, and again and again, and again and again. We've been living here, and sturgeon has been living here forever. They've been living here. They've been living here forever. They've been living here. Thanks.
Very nice. That was just beautiful, Grace. Thank you.
Okay. And before we go, can I sing one more little one?
Okay.
This is also Dana Lyons, but it's more of a jovial one.
Okay.
Okay. He wrote this for, well, it doesn't matter. I asked him if I could sing it, and he said yes. Our state is nope, wrong. Our state is a conduit, fracked gas or Bakken crude. Our state's just a conduit, handed here, we'll pipe it through. And our state's just a conduit, we export whatever you send. We're standing here in New York State, where commerce never ends. And our state, we're just a conduit for Kinder Morgan, Trans-Canada too. Our state's just a conduit, handed here, we'll send it through. And our state's just a conduit, they're gonna frack whatever they send. We're standing here in New York State, and this we will defend. Oh, standing here in Bethlehem, a place we will defend. Thank you.
Another beautiful song. Thank you so much, Grace.
Well, thanks for having me.
You're a powerful activist. We've got a couple more minutes here.
Okay.
So I thought maybe you would talk a little bit about people listening today. They might want to join you. What would you suggest?
Well, I am hoping to get some allies. We've been very fortunate. We contacted the St. Thomas Church, and their environmental committee is passing around our petition. They're taking us pretty seriously. We have been going door to door in the communities around Elm Avenue Park, because those are impacted communities. And we're having a series of get-togethers, some of them at the pool. And we also wanted to make sure you had my email.
Yes.
That you can write me if you need more information and want to know how to hook up, because we do have an email list serving our community at this point. So Bethlehem Ecodefense, no compromise in defense of the Mother Earth.
Very nice. Okay. Maybe you could give me a quick answer to this.
What's that?
I know a lot of people are going to say, is it worth my time to become an activist? Can I really make a difference? Do you think they can make a difference? Do you think
I am
made a difference?
100% certain that without people speaking up and ordinary citizens like you and I getting active, we would be living in a whole different country, and it wouldn't look anything like anything where we'd want to live. Because of Lois Gibbs, because of people like Ward Stone, as you and I know, or because of people like Rachel Carson.
Oh, Rachel Carson. And the author of this book.
Yeah, and it actually, he's wonderful. Lester Brown, he really knows his stuff. He did the World Watch reports. Because of Mike Roselle, because of Tracy Kettleman, you may not know her, but she's a sustainable forester. Because of the people, Regin Adams, who is almost largely responsible for the fact there is a pine bush today. Without these people, we would not be living in the world that we are. We would not have the species that we still have left. And so we have to be very grateful to people who do get active, and also acknowledge that there's a few joys in life that really can touch when you know that something you did actually mattered.
Mm-hmm. That's a powerful way to end. So why don't we end on that? Thank you so much for being here, Grace.
Thanks for asking me. I was really, really honored.
Oh, good. Thank you all for joining us, and please join us for future shows where we'll be talking about the cost of war and drones and more issues than we've even thought about yet. Thank you.
Bring them home, bring them home, bring our parents, our children home, from the dust of Afghanistan back to our arms, bring them home.
Bring them home, bring them home, bring our sons and our daughters home, from the ghettos of Baghdad back to our arms.